And it's just sort of serendipitous to some degree. A lot of what I know is from my grandmom and my mom, just watching them create, and my auntie too, watching them create over the years using upcycled materials, things in the house to make things of beauty and to make utilitarian objects, like quilts, and hand towels for drying the dishes and that kind of thing. Just good stuff. Old shirts to make, like, you know, like pillows and that kind of thing. And never really realized I was paying any attention to that. And, but I knew I had a talent. And a friend of mine said, "You've been an artist all your life," but I didn't know it. And so, so I taught myself how to macrame when I was in high school, and that helped me to buy like a prom dress and all that kind of stuff. And just to have a little extra money in my pocket. As time goes on, I moved to Philadelphia. I moved to Sacramento, California, and I went to school there. Picked up meeting. I met some friends, and their friends that I met lived with me for a little bit. Came back to the East Coast, and had never, all the textile stuff that I had done in the past, I had not done. By this time, I'm becoming, you know, mom for the second time and that kind of thing, and I was working and married and all that. And one of the friends, a dear friend that lived with me in Sacramento, she was killed in a terrible car accident. And I actually used what I had in my home and created my very first doll. That evolved. I read this beautiful book called Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo. Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo. That is renowned author Ntozake Shange. And I read excerpts of that book to the participants over the past 2 days in our class. And so it kind of set the mood, kind of freed folks up, because my alter ego is Indigo, and she is the youngest third child of a single mother, beautiful South Carolina, Gullah. And she, Indigo was like, out of all the three girls, just a bit more precarious, allowed to get away with things. And she made dolls. She made doll stuff with cotton pods, rice, scraps of indigo. Her mother, because her mom was a weaver and a dyer and a seamstress for the community, Indigo got all these beautiful scraps. And so she made dolls without even patterns, just making them intuitively. And so with that, I made my first doll, remember, but from the tragedy, but then I started to find this comfort in creating these dolls, using the spirit of indigo in this space when I create. I used to use it in the sewing machine a lot. Then over time, I met a community of African American doll artists in Washington, D.C. And I just learned all these different techniques. I was a closet doll artist for a long time because I didn't know that was a thing. So I worked for the Department of Commerce, and I worked directly, if anyone has been to DC, you know that the Department of Commerce is right across the street from the monument. And so I really hated the Department of Commerce and the people that I worked with. I couldn't do that kind of federal government thing just was not working for me, but I had to do a job. If you needed health care, you gotta do what you gotta do. But I would find respite. I would take these little pieces of material and these little things that I was making, which wasn't even a full doll at that time, and I would take my lunch and I would get up, go to the elevator, go to the monument, go through the elevator, sit out and look at everybody and make my little things. The next thing you know, people, I'd bring it back to my cubicle and I'd pin them up and people started inquiring about them and they wanted to buy them. And that was kind of the start of the evolution of creating. Then I was with these fabulous doll artists and textile people. Two of them are here today. And I entered shows and would get advice and sit and work with these incredible women who were legacy artists in Washington, D.C., and the DMV, and New York City, and that kind of thing. So that's really the evolution of how I started doing things. The doll making, love it. I can do it with my eyes closed, but then I kind of was inspired by, the world and things that was going on in the world and things that were going on in my family, and I had a lot of stress scrap materials from my grandma, quilts that I never even thought about using, just scraps of quilts she had made years ago. And so somehow or another, the recycling thing was a natural thing. It was just easy to just merge my stories with the stories of people that had used things with the worn fabrics and whatnot, and old quilts and old, materials that you find in a secondhand store. But then somehow or another, I fell into the stitch work. And I would just stitch, no guidance, no books, just let me just do it. Let indigo work through me and do my thing, so that with indigo working through me, there's no criticism. Just create, right? And you're free. And then as I'm doing the stitch work, building things on felt, which is my new love of the past, I would say, 8 years or so, I fell in love with the back of the work, the guts of the work. So I would do things like this. This is one of my early journals, right? And I taught myself the French knot and all these things. Again, all this stuff I just kind of just played with and do this kind of thing, right? But then it's like, oh my God, the guts. I love the guts of the work, which to me is the design unto itself, right? So, and again, here. And these are just scraps of materials. I am gifted a lot of materials from several clothing designers in DC and in New York and so forth. So, then about now, almost 15 years ago, I decided that I was going to have a studio, thanks to my husband, who decided that he saw there were some art studios that were available I live in Virginia, in Maryland. And he was driving along that route one day, and he came home and he said, hey, they've got some art studios that are available. I think you should do that. And so I said, okay. So I checked it out and everything, and there were some art studios in the back. And I said, oh, they got these cubicles in the back. And so when I told him, he says, in the back, you belong in the front. You need a storefront. And there were like 4 of those available. And so I took the okay, I did it. And I started entering shows and so forth and so on. I said, wow, this is a beautiful thing, and doing these shows with friends and that kind of thing. So the process is still continuing to evolve. And so that brings me to my work here. Let me show you. I had my first solo show in 2022. In 2020, during the height of COVID. And so the gallery owner was very, very creative. You can see where he's actually has all this going on. And it's called portico because we have a long portico, a porch. And it's actually I should say, I was in one facility for like almost 10 years. And then I was invited to come here. There's only 5 of us. So I'm going to tell you that this is sassafras, cypress, and indigo. These are the 3 characters from the book. This work is made from old worn cloth and worn shirts. This is all hand stitched work, stitched with felt, stitched with polyfill. And this is the story of sassafras, cypress, and indigo. And this is like my second or third version of these three characters from this fictional book. So there they are, sassafras, cypress, and indigo. Okay, this piece is called Night Garden. And I started picking up some stitches that I really, really enjoy. And by the way, all this work here that you see is my work. It's just, I'm just highlighting the 4 things that are highlighted in this solo exhibit. And so this is felt, and this is worn, faded linen. And I was practicing, some of you that are probably stitchers that are here, the blanket stitch, some French knots, just a play with threads, a play with color. And I was calling this my night garden, but then, I said, something else looks like, an astrological thingamajiggy, a cosmic thing in the sky. But it's not really that vibrant, but it's all different colors, and it's all kinds of there's couching going on here. But again, it's a worn piece of fabric. It may have been like, I don't know, an old curtain or something. But it was this supple. I love working with very soft, supple, worn fabrics. So, playing with blanket stitch. Again, no pattern, just doing my thing. So basically with my work, I set my own rules. I'm not into precision. That drives me crazy. I admire people that can do that. The quilts downstairs are really admirable. But that kind of work would drive me crazy. And so I respect people that can do it. And obviously I don't use a long arm or anything like that. All of my work is done by hand on table, bed, floor, and my design walls. This piece, we see several here. This is the one that was highlighted. But this is called Damn Cotton. And I forgot the name of her. This one right here is called Domestic Angel. And this is dedicated to my aunties and my grandma and all of my relatives that were domestic workers and worked in the homes of wealthy white folks and took care of their children and cleaned their floors. And of course, this was in the 50s and the 60s and all of that. And this has to do with the fact that even though they did their hard work, after taking care of everyone else's family, coming home to take care of their own children and continuing their whole cycle over again, cooking dinner, checking homework, all of that, when they went to work every day, and some of them, like my aunts, they had that full-time job, and they also had a part-time job. So, but when they are in that trance of scrubbing the floors, cleaning your bathrooms and all that, they had dreams and aspirations for their children. They had dreams and aspirations for their family members. So when they're doing all that, they're sending out the messages to the universe. And the domestic angel captures that and does what she needs to do so that these dreams and aspirations can come to fruition. And so that is dedicated to my aunties and them. This is composed, I did it on a topiary, a great twig topiary that was built like an A-stand like. Then I padded it with cotton batting. I stuffed it so that it would give it some heft. Stuffed it and then wrapped it in indigo, right? Velvet base. And then when I did the hair, I do either 3 or 4 or a group of them, a bunch of them of the thread of the yarn to stitch in, and then I embellish with cowrie shells and that kind of thing. The wings on her are painted clothespins, which matches with the washboard that I use as well to state the message here of the domestic angel. And it's one of those pieces that I sell a lot of my work, but sometimes you make a piece and you go, that's not going anywhere. And so this is not going anywhere. Love to show it, but that's not for sale for obvious reasons. And so this one was done in 2016. It's called Domestic Angel. So you can see some of my work in the back there. This is a flip-flop doll. That's sold, that one's sold, this one's gone. This piece right here that came out as a result of viewing for three times Raoul Peck's take on James Baldwin's I Am Not Your Negro. And you can get, I got the script after I saw the movie 3 times. It's a docu-drama. After the 3rd time, I got the script. And I was really moved by it. And so I had never really done like a big public where thousands of people will come see your work, but it was an opportunity for me to do that. And it was called Artomatic. And Artomatic is an organization that goes around to different, they just take over empty buildings, like, commercial buildings, and then they just have these huge art exhibits. And you have the opportunity to go in take one of these offices. Either the building is going to be renovated or just completely blown up, right? Gotten rid of. And so, like, you would have to apply, and I had never, I was like, gosh, just a complete room where I can just do my own installation and tell my story. And so, I made several pieces. But this piece right here, I used so I got accepted. I painted this room and I did an installation that included this piece. This is Ode to James Baldwin. Can you just stop it for just a second? Thank you. So with this piece, this is my grandma's quilt that I had in the trunk forever. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I thought that I would try to create something that would say something about the modern day black woman and what was happening in the 60s. I was trying to, all these ideas were in my head, using the documentary by James Baldwin and his words and the documentary was about the fact that he was in Paris and he wasn't really sure about what he should do for the movement. And he was saying, I'm over here, I'm doing this thing here, and I really should be back in the United States helping out. And he was just sort of stricken with how he should do this thing. And so he started writing this book. His editor was always on his case, and he never really finished it. But he did end up coming to the United States and participating with Martin and Russell Baynard and all those folks. So what I did was I wanted to have the past merge with the future, right? And so what I did was I used my grandma's quilt and I used my stitches. This is red and then this is black. The red is for the bloodline and the black is to represent the African American community. And then I created this quilt. This is James Baldwin. This book is dedicated to him, and this is a passage from the documentary that I actually hand wrote. And I always say this thing is not finished because I think I want to go back to embroider the words that I wrote with a marker. At the very bottom, I need to do this. I would like to do the same thing. And so one evening, I was like, how do I kind of like get to more of like sort of rounding this out for myself? So that I can show it even though I don't feel as though it's completely done. And I came up, woke up in the middle of the night and said, I should do like maybe a slip. And I am going to, so with muslin, old muslin, that was kind of warm with like coffee stains and that kind of did look at the process of making it kind of aged. And I just wrote the title of the book over and over and over again. I am not your Negro, I am not your Negro, I am not your Negro repetitively. And so I would say that, and that's the title of the documentary. So I would say that this is like mostly finished, but I felt like it was shown, and the curator was with me all the way, so yeah, we should show this. And so there's that piece. And so now we're going to go to the piece that was sold last year, and this is Go of Grace. So Go of Grace it just spoke to me the entire time. So the quilt was given to me by a friend, and it was like one of those quilts that for every inch there were like 10 to 12 stitches, right? And it was white. And then I had another old quilt that I deconstructed. And I wanted to pay homage to the Gullah women and to the women in my family, of course, and to black women here, particularly in the South. So I dyed the quilt blue to represent the sky, right? It was a series of just constantly done. It was a huge quilt, as you can see. But I didn't want it dark, and I wanted gradations of blue because it already had like these beautiful diamonds and all that in it. And so it worked out nicely, and I said, okay, now I'm going to create the seasons too. And so I did the background first. So I created the season for winter, spring, summer, and fall, and it's all in, The Suffolk knots, the Suffolk circles have this huge, someone gave me a beautiful Suffolk blanket. And by the way, this was the inside of the quilt. All that was interior, the Chanel. And then, again, this is all handwork, no machine anywhere. And so I just laid it out, thought about it more, and continued. Honestly, I did kind of like, after it was so big, I just, okay, I kind of can see the figure. And so I would just lay the fabric down, pin it down, and sometimes I would rearrange things, and I just continued to build and build and build on top of it. And then I started stitching. The head is two different, it's like one is almost faded linen in black, and then navy linen, and that's how I created the head. And the neck, all hand stitched. And then I couldn't figure out how I didn't want the Suffolk circles to look planned. And so I literally threw them up and let them land. I didn't want them too bunched up together, and I wanted them spread out. And so after I made the decision about that, I pinned them down and I stitched, and I stitched, and I stitched. Until I actually felt that that work was done. I had no intentions of ever submitting it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But then I thought, after I found out about this new software where I can actually, research and send, research shows and whatnot all over the world, I said, okay, let me try this Schweinfurth quiz. Because they were speaking my language. They talked about the parameters and all that stuff. And I said, well, what have I got to lose? And so I submitted the application, and as I told you in my opening, the rest is history. So the woman that bought this, she obviously connected with it, and I connected with it because, it doesn't have a face per se, but she saw something, she felt something, she was moved by it, and she got the book and she read it. She read Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo just to learn more about the vellum, right? Somebody that, if I saw her on the street, I probably would never, we probably would even more than just like maybe glance at one another and kept going, right? And so, of course, when I found out, I called her, I got the information, I called her, and it was just really a beautiful experience. And so I'm grateful for that. Okay, so let me talk to you about this work. This is how I'm traveling right now. This is the kind of work that I'm doing, and I'm doing it like very large pieces, but I didn't want to bring I just wanted to bring my carry-on, so I only brought a few pieces in my carry-on the plane. I didn't want to do like a check-in and all that kind of stuff. So this is all the background. I take cloth and I love to coffee stain them. And when I coffee stain, the tannins can eventually over time, depending upon the thickness of the fabric, and I love using natural fibers. It can eventually eat through the fabric, but that's the aim. I want it to kind of like, how, I don't know if you know, but metal, when you do the rust staining, it just sort of eats right through. But the coffee stain, it takes a little bit of time. So all these pieces of fabric have been coffee stained. A lot of my work, I don't start out giving it names because the story may not be complete, but eventually I give it a title over time, but I have to really stay with it for a while to do that, to make that decision. These were little playful pieces here, the one in the center over there, and that purple one. When these are framed, they are beautiful, particularly with like natural wood frames and that kind of thing. All of it is handwork. Once again, I love the guts of the work, and the guts is the back of the work. These were what I call my, what do I call these things? I made like about 12 or 13 of them. You can frame them up if you want. Some people like to look at the back, so they just pin them up in like their cubicles or something at work. But this is my, not wabi-sabi, burrow stitching. So, I just, you just put the fabric down, you put several layers down, and you don't overdo it. You just sort of like place stitches where, you know, it can be sort of a discrete stitch or something that will just highlight a space like right in here and right in there, right? And these are all scraps of fabric. This is something that, you know, you have that stuff in your bag when you're on the plane and that kind of thing. And you can actually build books from this as well. These little, I call them my dings. These are very popular around this time of the year because a lot of folks buy them for their Christmas trees and whatnot. But again, these are all scraps of fabric, and it's just, again, no patterns or anything. It's just the fabric is there. I may pull some things out. It may seem something that I saw that day that made me think about the possibility of creating a particular kind of piece, and then I just go for it.